Okay, welcome. We're gonna start on chapter 9, which is online retail and services. But before I get into the chapter, I'm going to talk a little bit about my own work history, which relates to this chapter quite a bit. So, uh, eBay. I'm also going to talk about the big Kahuna, Amazon, and some of the on-demand services like Uber, Lyft, Instacart, those types of things that we use today. Okay. But to start off with, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of my past work because I think it's interesting to hear about the evolution of electronic commerce over a number of years. So, back when we talked about payments, I mentioned that I worked for a company that uh, effectively invented the internet based payment mechanisms that we all take for granted today. And that company was called First Virtual Holdings. They were based in San Diego. So I guess you could say that Southern California is the birthplace of online payments. Um, but anyways, that company, one of the things that they did, and I mentioned this in an earlier unit, they developed this thing called the InfoHaus, and it was an online shopping mall for information. And this was before you could purchase physical goods and services on the internet. You could purchase information, and so the company got its start. I remember telling you this with a joke a day. The concept of, gosh, wouldn't it be great if you could sell a joke a day for $1 or whatever it might cost? But you could never do it because at the time there was nothing on the internet to allow you to accept payments. So, anyhow, the InfoHaus was an early way of selling information. And so this was an early entrance into e commerce for some types of merchants. And I recall that you could buy news articles, books, magazines, that sort of thing through the InfoHaus. Um, a little later, the company developed its first purchase mechanism where it wasn't really information per se. It was more of a service based model. So we had merchants like digits.com. Back in those days, you'd have a web counter to count the number of people on your website and publicly show it. Don't ask me why. I can't even remember why people did that other than to show off how many people you had. But digits.com was one of our customers, and they used our payments service for that. And then we started seeing physical merchants for things. So something as simple as cigars. We had a merchant who sold Cuban cigars on the internet. And so they used our payment system to facilitate that commerce. Then we had customers who would sell other physical products over the internet. And then by the time that became popular, it became popular with companies like eBay and PayPal. Or so not PayPal, eBay and Amazon is what I meant to say. Okay. Now, we fast forward a few years, and by this point, people are reasonably comfortable doing business online. We're talking the late 90s, early 2000s, and pretty much anybody could start a business and do e commerce and raise a lot of money, hire a lot of people, build really cool office space, and then start selling products and services online. So that's where my second chapter in e-commerce steps in, and this is a company that was kind of a spin-off of technology from a utility company. So the utility company had developed technology to read meters remotely. And they developed a little transmitter that allowed connectivity to the internet as well. And so you could read a meter through the internet without having to send out a meter reader. Now, this technology exists today, and pretty much most of the homes in California, if not all of them, have smart meters now that don't require anybody to come out and read them. And meters for gas, electric, and water also do the same thing. But in those days, that didn't exist. So this company developed that technology, and they said, well, this would be really cool if we could commercialize this somehow. And so the idea of automating services for your home came about. And so this company was called myhomekey.com, and they were a San Francisco company. And what I think is interesting about them is they didn't just focus on B2C. So they actually had a B2B component as well. And so they develop partnerships, and this is one approach you could take if you're developing an e-commerce system, is partnerships with other parties. So they partnered with utility companies. So yes, they advertised to try to go and bring in customers to their website, but they didn't just rely on their own organic traffic development. They leveraged partners, and the partners then were responsible for advertising the service to their customers. And so some of the first customers that they had, partners that they had were Keyspan Energy, Texas Utilities, Entergy, and I believe Enron as well, but I'm not 100% certain on that last one. And these utility companies invested in the company in exchange for the rights to be able to market to their customers. So now the company, instead of having a limited audience of what they can reach with their own limited advertising budget, now they've got Keyspan and Texas Utilities and Entergy and these others who can include a mailer in with their utility bill talking about the company's services. Okay. So you started seeing more traffic coming to the website from those partners. But you also started seeing some other things. The company touted services. So partnerships with service providers. At the time, plumbers, HVAC contractors, landscapers, painters, all of these maids, okay, all these different types of services for your home were done through the telephone book. Okay. If you needed one of these services, you picked up the physical telephone book, you flipped through the yellow pages, and you found an ad that looked like it might be someone you would want to do business with, and you'd call them and they'd give you a price, and then you might sign up for service with them. Well, this company was trying to disrupt that market and said, this is ripe for digital services. So they partnered with ServiceMaster and Sears and the companies that make air conditioners and things like that. And they developed a partnership in order to market services and recommendations to customers. So you could kind of think of some of the features like Angie's List today, okay, before Angie's List existed. But some of the other things were being able to schedule services, so having to build a scheduling platform. That sort of thing didn't exist back then. So the company had to develop a scheduling platform. Today, if you want to schedule services, you have that ability to pull it up on your phone and schedule something. You can add it to your website pretty easily. Okay? It's not something that you could do back then. Okay? So scheduling was a key component of the features. And then, of course, there was the e-commerce where we would sell products to customers directly. So dishwashers, stoves, other large appliances like that. And then the services that would allow it to be installed into whatever location, your home or your office. Okay, so that was kind of the services that this company provided in 2000, 2001. Okay, they didn't last very long, but that's kind of the time frame of when they were in business. And so they provided this service, and they used these partnerships to drive traffic to their site. And they offered all sorts of contests and promotions and things like that. These are all things you think about if you're doing retail. Okay? They weren't successful, and there were a number of reasons why they weren't successful. First of all, the economics didn't work out for the organization. They spent way more money than they were bringing in, and they didn't have enough runway. Add to it, we had a recession, and the investment process, those funds dried up considerably. But then we also had 9/11 happen, and 9/11 kind of killed any potential for investment dollars coming in. Okay? And so this company, along with a lot of other e-commerce companies of that era, went out of business. And so if we look at kind of why did this company go out of business and why did a lot of companies go out of business, we can point to some key areas. Number one, wasting money on things that aren't necessary. Is it necessary to build yourself a grandiose office space? Probably not, right, when you're starting out. Overhiring and having people that you didn't really need. Having very high IT infrastructure costs. So we talked about cloud-based systems, really making it cost-effective for organizations to do deployments today. Well, cloud hadn't been invented yet. So every time a company wanted to build an e-commerce presence back then, you had to go and build it yourself, which was very costly. We're talking double digits, if not more, of millions of dollars to build out your own infrastructure. Okay. And then if you were you had a fulfillment mechanism, say you're selling a physical good, then you've got to deal with warehousing and your supply chain. Okay. And Webvan's a great example of this. Spent billions of dollars on building out these automated warehouses and buying a fleet of vehicles and totes and all this other stuff. But the economics were never there for that large of expansion. And then by the time they realized it, they ran out of money. Now, the Webvan brand lives on in Amazon Fresh. The Webvan trademarks and everything were purchased by Amazon. A lot of other companies face the same fate. Okay? We ended up with a recession, and then it was very hard for these companies to bring in investment dollars. Now today we have a lot of startups as well. We've had a number over the last 15 years or so, and some of them have been big successes. Some of them have not been profitable successes, but they've been, from a growth perspective, in opening up new markets, they've been a success by that measurement. And so that brings us into the economy today, where we've got these services like Instacart, Uber, Lyft, trying to think of some of the other ones that I use besides Instacart. See what I have on my phone here for shopping. So Instacart, Zappos, Shopify, and then we've got the old standbys like Amazon, and then we've got the brick and mortar like Walmart that have moved into e-commerce. Okay, we've had a huge growth of these services, okay? And it's transformed the way that we conduct business these days. Okay. Let's look at Instacart for a moment. So Instacart's model is they sell products from other stores. They do partnerships with other stores. They have contractors who do the grocery pickup and delivery. And they have a model where there's a monthly fee if you want unlimited deliveries. Unlimited free deliveries, I should say. There is a service fee associated with each transaction. And then there's a model with some grocery stores where the grocery store pays a fee, and then the costs of the groceries are the same as you pay in the store. Other merchants, that fee is passed along to the consumer in the form of higher prices for the items. Okay? But it's all about convenience. So Instacart's been successful because they didn't try to build the delivery infrastructure themselves. They didn't try to go and build out grocery store warehouses themselves. They don't manage or maintain any inventory. Okay? They are the Webvan of the modern era, and they've been much more successful. Now, I don't know whether they're profitable or not. I actually haven't bothered to look into that. But they've been able to stick around because their model is different. Now, their model is very similar to Peapod, which partnered with local grocery stores a number of years ago to do something similar to Webvan, okay, where there was a delivery service. Okay. But Instacart allows us now to shop in a number of different stores and have those items delivered the same day potentially. Okay. And so that has actually opened up opportunities during this COVID situation. Okay. Now let's let's shift gears and look at some of the traditional ones, and then we'll move to Amazon here and talk about Amazon. So let's look at Walmart. So Walmart's approach is rather unique for a brick and mortar store. What Walmart did was they formed an e-commerce division, and they treated it like it was its own independent store. So the product mix was only online for the longest time. That's changed. You can pick items up. But back in the original days of Walmart.com, when you ordered something on Walmart.com, it wasn't necessarily the same items as they carried in the stores. And so you could find things that weren't in the stores, and things that were in the stores weren't on Walmart.com. They also did drop shipping from their suppliers. So in some cases, they didn't even carry the inventory. They just had the ability to go and pull inventory from someone else. So that's something else for you to consider, if you're building out an e-commerce presence is, are you going to carry inventory, or are you going to do something like drop shipping from your suppliers? There are benefits to that. There are drawbacks. Benefits being you've got a wide selection. You don't have to carry the inventory costs yourself. The pitfall being if there's supply chain issues, you aren't selling anything. You also don't have control over the quality of the experience. Now, Walmart's shifted to a model where e-commerce is part of their stores now, and you can pick things up. You can even do curbside delivery. But they've been very careful about how they've transitioned into these new ways of doing business. Okay? And so a lot of that work for the Walmart e-commerce happens up in San Bruno, California, and down in Carlsbad, California. So once you get a little bit established in your careers, Walmart Labs has a facility where they do a lot of their e-commerce activities down in Carlsbad. Okay? Let's look at some of the others. So Petco. Okay? Petco has the ability to purchase things, do curbside pickup, have things shipped. And it's not a great experience, but it's an okay experience. They are also doing delivery through Instacart as well. So Instacart's partnered with some vendors that also have their own app. So they've gone multi-channel. Okay. Best Buy. And for a while, Best Buy was one of the types of stores that was closed. You couldn't go inside them. So your only option was to buy online and pick up in the parking lot. And so I think they have a fairly good mobile experience available, which allows you to shop for items, comparison shop, order them, and have them right at the store for you or delivered to your doorstep. They've kind of taken a similar approach to what Lowe's and Home Depot have. Now, what's different about Best Buy versus some other vendors like Fry's Electronics is Best Buy has a seamless experience between the store and their mobile app and their website. Okay. Now let's contrast that to Fry's. I needed something a few months ago and I ordered it through Fry's website. Okay. And by the way, I went to a Fry's store the other day and there was nothing in the store. Like I think they're going out of business. I'm not really sure what's going on, but it was an empty store and hardly anything in there. So excuse me. Whereas Best Buy was a seamless interface between the store and the app, the experience with Fry's was very disappointing. I placed my order. It said that they had it in stock. It actually said they had hundreds in stock. I got a notification to go head down to the store to pick it up. Then I got a call from the store telling me they didn't have the product I ordered, but I could go down there for the other items that I'd ordered. Well, the items that I'd ordered that they had were $5 cables. I could have ordered those online. The item that I really wanted was patch panel for my office. And that's not something I can buy easily elsewhere. Well, they didn't have that. Well, I'm not driving an hour out of my way each way for cables that I can order and have here the next day from Amazon or whatever. Or I can go pick up at Best Buy. So I canceled my order. But they didn't make it easy. So you've got to think about the user experience. I have nothing good to say about the fries experience. I won't shop there again. Best Buy, I shop there fairly frequently because there's always something that I end up needing for work or at home or what have you. Okay. Now, that brings me to Amazon. And so Amazon obviously started as a bookstore. Okay. And it's grown from there. So they added product categories over time. They added a marketplace like eBay where you could sell your own stuff. Okay. Now they have third-party sellers, some of which are fulfilled by Amazon, some of which are fulfilled by the merchant. Okay. So you have a lot of choices on there. But at the same time, there may have been, impacts to local communities and local businesses. And so Amazon's built out this platform. It's multi-channel. It's a mobile app. It's a website. You can order things from Alexa speakers, which they started building. They didn't build Alexa just to provide a new service. They did it for commerce reasons. Imagine if you run out of something, being able to ask for it. The barrier is much lower. And they started this off with little buttons you could put in your laundry room or your kitchen cupboard for specific items. And you push it and it adds it to your cart and it shows up the next day or whatever. They also experimented with a wand, which allowed you to scan items in your cupboard and automatically order them. Okay? Or take a picture of a piece of fruit or speak it. So there's been a lot of technology development. In addition, Amazon's branched out into other areas beyond e-commerce. So Amazon Web Services is their cloud-based platform that they then sell to other customers. So they've not only been able to make money off the e-commerce side, but they've also been able to make money selling their unused infrastructure to other merchants and other businesses. And so they're using the money that they make from the cloud to help fund development on their commerce side as well, which is lower margin. Okay? So there's a lot of areas where you could potentially start as an e-commerce merchant and move into services later on. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and talk a bit about the chapter. And so we've got the online retail sector, and we've had a lot of growth here. So we have our social networks like Facebook and Pinterest, and then we've got all of our online retailers. We've got Google search engines and Amazon search and stuff. All these things lead to increases in the amount of e-commerce that we have going on. Okay. Now, excuse me. Online retail is still a small sliver of overall retail. And I haven't seen any numbers for this year yet. It'll be interesting to see when there are new numbers for this year. But e-commerce has significantly grown over the past 9-10 months since the lockdowns began. And that has led to changes in people's behavior. I asked the question of all of you, how many of you have really ramped up your online purchases? How many of you have relatives who never did online purchases before who have started doing them? How many of you have relatives who really never used a smartphone until this pandemic and then started using the smartphone to order things? Okay. It's leading to transformation. And even within my own life, I've always ordered online since I was able to do so, but I order a lot more online than I used to. And my, that was purely random, I guess. My grandmother just started using a smartphone a few days ago. I brought it out to her and helped her with it because I was concerned about her well-being. I was concerned about her having to go to the store. And I really wanted her to be able to be safe, as safe as she can be with health issues. But I wanted her to be able to be safe and be able to purchase things if she chose to do so. It's probably going to be a while before she's used to doing that, but at least she has the tool now. Okay. Now, a lot of businesses that are selling things go for an omni-channel approach where they sell in their stores, maybe they sell in a website, maybe they sell on their mobile platform. Hell, maybe some of them even sell through social media and other similar platforms. Okay. Now, the data is a little outdated in the book, but if we look at online revenues, electronics and clothing are at the top by far. Okay. Food and beverage, not very much of the electronic commerce, but I believe that's changed this year. Okay. When you couldn't order groceries because there was such a backlog and you'd have to wait a week to order groceries, or there were no slots, something tells me that's about to change. Okay. We've had significant growth, and we've talked about this previously. So right now, not including this year, which is probably going to skew the numbers, we were at a little over $600 billion in online retail last year. Okay. We were projected originally to have around $700 billion in online commerce this year. I suspect it's significantly higher than that because we had so many months where we couldn't do in-person shopping. Okay. As far as one other thing before I move on is advantages and challenges. So make sure you look at page 607 of the 2019 edition, and it would be somewhere around that same area in the 2017 edition. There are advantages and there are challenges with online retail. And one of the biggest challenges people have is concerns about security, okay, or privacy. And so I just posted a link to a blog post about the new California privacy law that voters just approved in the election a few weeks ago. Okay. So we approved one a couple years ago. It went into effect last January. And now there's a new version. I'm not sure when it's going to go into effect, but now there's a new version that enhances the existing one. I don't know if it weakens it in any way, but it certainly changes it. Okay, all right. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the other things that omni-channel merchants do, and you could do with your own business if you needed to do so. So you could have the ability to return items either through your web-based system with a return shipping label, or you could offer in-store returns if you have a physical location. Another interesting way is actually what Kohl's and Amazon have done. Amazon has a returns desk in some Kohl's. And so in those particular stores, you can actually take your package, get a code on your phone or print off a label, take it to the store. You don't have to box it up or anything, and they throw it on a big pallet with everything else and they return it. So I would imagine that's lower cost for Amazon because they can have it stuck on a truck altogether. And then for Kohl's, the benefit is they print off a coupon, and now you've got a discount for shopping at Kohl's either right then or up to a week later. And I know that I wasn't planning to shop at Lowe's, but my wife decided to do so when she got the coupons. So it can be very useful. Okay. Another thing is having a kiosk to order something in the store if you're out of stock. So you order in the store and you receive it at your home. Okay. My wife's done that with merchants before where they didn't have what she needed, but rather than lose the sale, they had a way to do that. Okay. Another thing is gift cards. So you provide a gift card, although you can't necessarily recognize that revenue when you sell the gift card. When the person comes back to the store to redeem the gift card, you recognize the revenue, and people tend to spend more in the store than what the gift card's worth. There are people who will try to get, every last penny out of that gift card, but a lot of people will go and spend a lot more than they would have if they didn't have the gift card. Okay. Then you can also do things like partnerships with other companies. So you have geolocation in your mobile app when you're in the store, and it pops up an ad for Tide detergent when you go down the aisle where the Gain or some other detergent is. Let's see here. From your business, you look at gross margin, which is your gross profit divided by your net sales. You think about your operating margin, which is when you divide your operating income or loss by your net sales revenue. And then your net margin being the percentage of gross sales revenue that you retain after all expenses are deducted. Okay. And then you calculate that by dividing your net income or loss by your net sales revenue. Okay. Your balance sheet. So for those of you who are finance majors or accounting majors, this provides a financial snapshot of your company on a specific date. Okay. And it shows your financial assets and liabilities. Let's move on to different business models. And one of your assignments, homework 2, is to do a business model canvas and then a narrative associated with that canvas. Very important that you do that business model canvas. It's a great visual way for you to visualize the things that you would need for your business, whatever type of business you are. So there are 4 primary types of online retail merchants. Okay. So we can have omni-channel merchants, and that's about a third, and they do online mobile commerce, brick and mortar, etc. Then we have virtual merchants, which makes up almost half of the type of online retail. Okay. And so these just do e-commerce. All right. Then we can have catalog merchants, which is a very small sliver. And then sometimes we have manufacturer direct. Okay. So the manufacturer has the ability to sell things directly to consumers. And Tesla is actually an example of manufacturer direct e-commerce. You purchase through their website. Even if you go into one of their stores, you're actually making the purchase online. Okay. Now, there's a great case study about Amazon in the book on pages 614 through 621, okay, of the 2019 edition. Read it. Amazon's a very interesting case study in general, but the things that Amazon, and so I think some of you actually work for Amazon, but the things that Amazon has contributed, one click to order. Okay. That is a patent that Amazon held for a very long time. They don't hold it anymore, but it was a patent where if you want to buy with one click, you had to pay a licensing fee to Amazon, but very convenient. Catalog merchants, Land's End, LO Beans, CDW, PC Connection, used to be Mac Mall as well. They had an offline catalog operation as well as e-commerce. Okay. And then I talked about the manufacturer model as well. Okay. Now, service sector, we have offline and online merchants. And there are a lot of different services out there that we can offer through e-commerce solutions. So hiring a consultant, for example, we can do that online or offline. Some people do both. Okay. All right, so another area is online financial services, and these have actually had an uptick in different options in recent years. So things like online banking. So there were banks that started in the 90s and early 2000s that actually offered internet banking long before any of the national banks did so. So it was an online bank account where you didn't have any physical locations. In exchange, you would make higher interest on your deposits. Okay. We've also had the large banks offer more and more electronic services. So a lot more people are using online banking than a long time ago, back in the 90s. Oh, and actually, there is for businesses, there are banks that specialize in business accounts that are online only with no physical branches as well. So there's a lot of different organizations providing those services. Brokerages as well. So you've got things like E-Trade, Ameritrade, Robinhood, Public Investing. I'm trying to think of what some of the other ones are. Yeah, I think those are the main ones. You also have the Bitcoin stuff. So you've got things like Coinbase to do trading of Bitcoin. We also have online services like Venmo and PayPal for transferring money back and forth. And yeah, that's probably a good amount there. Then we also had online mortgage and lending services, and some of these still exist, but a lot of these went out of business when the housing crisis happened. It's extremely difficult to get a mortgage these days. It's also extremely difficult to lend. So I don't think you see a whole lot of those online only mortgage companies anymore. Online insurance. So before the days of our normal insurance providers providing access to online insurance quotes, we had things like InsWeb and other insurance sites that offer that. Today, it's fairly common for any insurance company to offer online quotes and online access to your insurance policies. Online travel services. This is another area of services that have experienced a significant amount of growth. Today, I don't know many people who go to a travel agent to book travel. Most travel these days is generally booked online, even business travel. So businesses are getting better and better about putting these sorts of things into their ERP systems to do direct travel bookings. Okay. Major online sites for travel: Kayak, Hotels.com, Expedia, Orbitz, Travelocity, etc. Okay. We also have things now like Expensify, and then there's like SAP Concur, which has integration with airlines and hotels and rental car companies to do direct bookings. Online career services, so Career Builder, Monster, not really LinkedIn, I suppose, but Indeed. Those are all job sites. But these days, the quality on those sites is not where it used to be. Recruitment. So Glassdoor is another one there. There's a lot of specialized sites, but a lot of the job listings today are either directly on employer websites or on LinkedIn. On demand. So on demand, let's talk about that because it really is impacted by COVID. So Airbnb, incidentally, they just filed for an IPO. They provide lodging services. Okay. Uber and Lyft, they provide transportation services. TaskRabbit is running household errands for you. Instacart, your grocery shopping. Grubhub, Diner, what's it called? DoorDash, etc. Doing food delivery from restaurants. Postmates doing courier services for you. And numerous other companies exist for that sort of thing. Okay. And these are growing, especially with the COVID pandemic. And so we're using these services more and more. So we'll be interested to see where that goes in the future. Last area that I'll mention is Yelp, TripAdvisor, OpenTable, these types of sites. The first two being review sites, so you can online review. Restaurants pay for placement. Reservations go in, and they end up getting. OpenTable gets a cut of the reservation when you do a reservation. Yelp probably the same thing. But this also is an advertising mechanism for businesses in those areas. Well, that's it for this unit.